Before we start, please make sure to like this video and hit this subscribe button so you never miss a story like this. And also comments where you are watching from. Thanks. Get that thing off your property this instant or I will call the police. That was the first sentence I heard as I stepped out of my kitchen, holding my coffee. At first, I thought maybe someone on the street was yelling at a neighbor's dog again. But then I heard it again, closer this time, sharper, cutting through the calm morning air like a rusty blade. You heard me, Jason. The hammock is not in an HOA-approved zone. I dropped the mug. It shattered on the floor, but I didn't even flinch. I just stormed through my back door, barefoot, glass be damned, and what I saw made my blood boil instantly. There she was. Karen Monroe. Head of our HOA, self-proclaimed neighborhood order keeper, standing in my backyard, hands on hips, yelling at my wife like she owned the land beneath her feet. And behind her? Our hammock. Torn from the trees. Dumped on the ground like trash. You broke into my yard? I yelled, storming up to her so fast she stepped back. Did you seriously just, trespass to rip down my hammock? Are you out of your mind? Karen didn't blink. She didn't apologize. She didn't even pretend to be embarrassed. She just pointed her perfectly manicured finger at me like I was some wild animal who dared to crawl past her gate. You violated the regulations in Article 7, Section C of the Community Guidelines. No unsanctioned furniture or aesthetic disturbances in open rear lots. That hammock was an eyesore. I laughed, but the kind of laugh that only comes when your last nerve's already snapped. An eyesore? You broke into my yard. Do you understand how illegal that is? My wife stood behind me, shocked, tears in her eyes. She told me she was authorized by the board, she whispered. I didn't know what to do. You listen here, Karen barked, stepping forward again like she was on patrol, like she thought she could scare me. This neighborhood has a standard, Jason. And some of us work very hard to keep it that way. That hammock, floppy, faded, and tacky, was making the street look like a campground. It had to go. My voice dropped low. I wasn't shouting anymore, I was cold. Furious. Focused. You think this is about a hammock? You think I'm going to let you walk into my yard, humiliate my wife, rip down something I built with my son, and just call it community standards? She smirked. You'll thank me when your property value doesn't tank. That was it. I stepped up, toe-to-toe, and said, you have 5 seconds to get off my land. Because if you're still standing here when I'm done calling the cops, you'll be leaving in the back of a cruiser. Karen hesitated. For the first time, I saw it, the flicker. That little ripple in her face where confidence turned to fear, but only for a second. Then it was back to smugness. You think you're the only one with rights? I am the HOA. I am the standards. You want to fight? Fine. You'll regret it. I'll see to it that you're cited, fined, and if needed, removed. And just like that, she turned on her heel and walked off. Like nothing had happened. I looked down at my son's hammock, now crumpled in the dirt. 2 ropes still tied to the trees, swinging uselessly in the breeze. And I made a promise, right there. If she wanted war, she was going to get it. Because what she didn't know was that I knew something about her that no one else did. And I wasn't going to let this go. Not this time. Not again. It didn't start with the hammock. I wish it had. That would have made things simple. One moment of overreach, one act of trespassing, one Karen-style tantrum I could brush off and move on from. But no, this had been building for months. Quiet at first, like a slow leak behind a wall. Then it turned into something that drowned our peace. My name's Jason Matthews. I'm a middle school teacher. My wife, Mel, works part-time at the local library. We bought this house 2 years ago, scraped together every cent we had, prayed the inspections went well, and signed on the dotted line like it was the start of something sacred. It was our dream: modest backyard, strong trees, a place to hang the hammock my son and I built the summer before he passed away. Yeah, that hammock. Karen didn't know that, of course. Or maybe she did and didn't care. Because the thing about people like her is, they don't need a reason to hurt you. Just an opportunity. She started small. A friendly note taped to our mailbox about the color of our shutters. Then another about how our trash bins weren't rolled back to the side quickly enough. She once called us out during an HOA meeting for having visible holiday decor 3 days after Christmas. We tried to laugh it off at first. Called it Karen being Karen. Neighbors warned us, just stay out of her way, she thrives on drama. But drama doesn't knock politely. It breaks in. It builds itself a chair and demands coffee. Then came the threats, written citations in the mail. Photos of our yard taken without our knowledge. Fines for infractions we hadn't committed. One day, she claimed our dog barked too loud and too often, even though we don't have a dog. I went to the board. Sat through an endless meeting where Karen smiled like she wasn't trying to destroy us. I brought evidence, photos, timestamps, even a neighbor's written statement that proved she was lying. But the board didn't care. She was the board. President for 8 years. Appointed her own committee members. It was her kingdom. And we? We were just the peasants who needed to be reminded where we stood. Mel cried that night. First time I'd seen her break in months. She tried so hard to stay strong, for me, for the house, for the memory of our son. But that night she said something I'll never forget. She doesn't just want the hammock gone. She wants us gone. That's when I started documenting everything. Every note. Every fine. Every strange incident. I even installed a security camera on the back fence, not because I expected her to actually break in, but because I couldn't shake the feeling that she was capable of more. Turns out, I wasn't wrong. She'd always looked down on us like we didn't belong. Said things like, "Oh, Jason, this neighborhood is growing, you know, professionals are moving in now." As if teaching kids didn't count. As if loving a quiet life wasn't enough. And that hammock. It was more than a place to lay down. It was a symbol of what we'd built. With nothing. Of the afternoons I'd spent teaching my son to tie knots, laughing as he tangled the rope more than once. Of the nights Mel and I lay there under the stars, trying to remember what it felt like before we lost him. So when she tore it down, it wasn't just a rope and cloth she ripped from the trees. It was grief. It was peace. It was memory. That's when something inside me shifted. The good guy instinct, stay calm, be polite, take the high road, it snapped. I realized something, people like Karen count on the rest of us never fighting back. But she'd gone too far. And I had one card left to play. Because while she was busy trying to control everyone else's lives, she'd made one big mistake. She didn't know I had video proof of her trespassing. She didn't know I'd been gathering complaints from other neighbors too scared to speak. And she didn't know I'd already contacted a lawyer. The next time she stepped onto my property, she wouldn't be leaving with smug words. She'd be leaving with consequences. You ever have a moment where you stop being afraid? Where all the passive, polite, just ignore it and it'll go away energy gets replaced by something sharper. Not anger exactly. Not rage. Something cleaner. Like resolve. That was me the morning after she broke in. I stood in that backyard, looking at the snapped ropes, the torn canvas, and I felt, still. Not numb. Not defeated. Focused. I wasn't just going to fight back. I was going to finish this, for me, for Mel, for every person she bullied with her HOA badge and smug little clipboard. I opened a private folder on my laptop titled, Karen. All caps. I dumped everything I had into it. The photos. Screenshots of her passive-aggressive emails. Voicemail recordings where she said things like, "You're not exactly HOA material, Jason." And of course, the security footage. There she was, bold as daylight, walking into my yard like she owned it. No hesitation. Holding shears and a pair of garden gloves like it was her property. She looked around, smiled, and started cutting. She even had the nerve to look proud of herself when it finally dropped to the ground. That footage was gold. But I knew one voice wouldn't be enough. That's the thing about people in power, they rely on silence to stay in control. So I started knocking on doors. Quiet ones. People who always avoided HOA meetings. Who never spoke up. Turns out, they had stories too. Mrs. Davison 2 houses down? Karen tried to fine her $250 for putting a Support Our Troops sign on her lawn. Said it wasn't aesthetically approved. The elderly couple across the street? Karen sent their granddaughter away one afternoon when she came to visit in a hoodie and backpack. Claimed she looked suspicious. And that was just the beginning. Each time I told them, "You're not alone. I've got proof," their eyes lit up like maybe, just maybe, the tyranny was ending. I compiled every account, with names and permission. I scanned official HOA letters side by side with what the charter actually allowed. Half the things she threatened people with weren't even real violations, just scare tactics. The more I found, the more dangerous she looked. But what really sealed it? I discovered something she never wanted anyone to know. Karen had been billing the HOA for landscaping consultations, fake invoices paid to a company she owned under her maiden name. Thousands of dollars over the past 3 years. She was robbing us. Right under our noses. And suddenly, the hammock wasn't the fight. It was just the spark. So I set my trap. I emailed her using an alias, Concerned Neighbor 14. I said I had video of her crossing into my property and a plan to take her down. Said I'd be attending the next HOA meeting to bring it public. Within 20 minutes, she replied. One line. Don't do anything you'll regret. Too late for that. Because I did attend the meeting. I walked in with a flash drive and 3 signed witness statements. I wore a tie. Not for her. But for the man I used to be. The man she thought I still was. I waited until the meeting was almost over, when Karen started her usual smug rambling about neighborhood integrity and shared values. And then I stood up. Calm. Controlled. I said, I'd like to address the board with some footage. The moment her face turned white on the screen when she saw herself breaking in, trespassing, destroying my property, you could hear the entire room stop breathing. And then came the financial records. Line after line of padded invoices. A fake consulting company registered under her name. One neighbor gasped. Another cursed. I didn't shout. I didn't throw insults. I just looked her in the eye and said, you tried to control everyone else, but you couldn't even control your own greed. She walked out mid-meeting. Silent. Head down. By the end of that week, Karen was under investigation. Removed from her position. And me? I was voted onto the board. Not because I wanted power. But because someone needed to protect people from what happens when power's left unchecked. The hammock? We rebuilt it. Same wood. Same ropes. But this time, it hangs higher. And Karen? She hasn't stepped near our yard since. You'd think when someone like Karen finally falls, there'd be a celebration. Streamers. Fireworks. Maybe a block party. But the truth? It was quieter than that. Almost sobering. Like when a storm finally passes, and you walk outside to find the damage it left behind. Karen didn't return for the next HOA meeting. No apology. No explanation. Just a resignation email sent to the board at 3:07 a.m. No subject line. No salutation. Just one line again. I guess you all got what you wanted. Funny thing is, nobody wanted this. We wanted peace. Respect. A sense that this neighborhood could breathe again. Instead, we were all left unpacking the wreckage of years of silence. I got phone calls. Emails. Even a few handwritten notes on my doorstep. People who'd never spoken up before now wanted to help. The couple Karen tried to evict over a wind chime? They donated flowers to the community garden. The young mom she reported for letting her kids draw with chalk on the sidewalk? She joined the board as our new community event planner. And me? I wasn't trying to be a hero. But when they voted me in as president, I didn't say no. Because for the first time in a long time, this neighborhood wasn't just surviving, it was changing. But that didn't mean the war was over. There were still rumors. One guy, Mr. Blake, warned me that Karen had friends higher up, legal contacts. Said she might retaliate. File lawsuits. Dig into my past. I told him, she can dig all she wants. I've already buried the worst days of my life. Nothing she finds can hurt me more than what I've already survived. Because this wasn't just about a hammock. Not really. This was about how she reminded me of every person who had kicked me when I was down. The boss who laughed when I asked for time off to bury my son. The landlord who raised my rent the same month I lost my job. The bank teller who looked at me like trash when I cashed in my son's college fund just to stay afloat. Karen may have had power, but she didn't have purpose. And purpose? That's what makes people dangerous in the right way. I used my new position to write the first real community charter update in over a decade. No more vague rules. No more hidden fines. Every resident got a printed copy and access to vote on changes. We added a clause about property dignity, your backyard, your sanctuary. No inspections without consent. I called it the Hammock Amendment. People actually clapped. Funny how something so small, canvas and rope, sparked a whole revolution. I also started a support group. Nothing fancy. Just coffee and chairs under a canopy in the park on Sundays. Neighbors Anonymous, someone joked. But people came. They talked. About grief. Loneliness. Bills. Dreams. And it hit me, maybe Karen wasn't born this way. Maybe she became a bully because power was the only way she ever felt important. That doesn't excuse it. But it explains it. Still, there was one last thing I needed to do. One last visit. I didn't knock. I stood outside her iron gate, same one she used to brag about being neighborhood standard. It was flaking now, like even the paint had stopped listening to her orders. I didn't come to start a fight. I came to end something. Karen opened the door slowly. She looked thinner. Not weak, just smaller. The air around her wasn't sharp anymore. It was tired. She didn't say anything right away. Just stared. Then, "Did you come to gloat?" I shook my head. "I came to return something." I held out the folded piece of canvas and rope. Her eyes locked onto it like it was a ghost. The hammock. Clean. Neatly bundled. The very one she tore down, stomped on, called too late back for the neighborhood. "I thought you burned that," she muttered. "Thought about it," I admitted. "But I realized it wasn't mine to destroy. Just like this place was never yours to control." She stepped back. Let me in. The house was cold. Pristine. Lifeless. Furniture with no personality. Not a single family photo. I asked, "You live here alone?" She didn't answer. Instead, she sat down across from me and said, almost whispering, "They took everything." I didn't know if she meant the board, or the neighborhood, or her own family. Maybe all three. "You pushed everyone away," I said, quietly. "Even people who just wanted to live in peace." Her voice cracked. "I was trying to keep order. My husband, he left because he said I let everything fall apart. The HOA gave me control, and I needed something to hold on to." There it was. Not just control. Desperation. I nodded slowly. "You know, I used to be angry," I told her. "The way you treated people. The way you humiliated me in front of my kid. But now? I paused. Now I just feel sorry. Not for you losing power. For you never learning how to live without it. She swallowed hard. Then asked the question I didn't expect. Why are you really here, Jason? I looked her in the eyes. Because I needed to prove to myself that I could still offer grace. Even to someone who tried to destroy me. I stood up. You don't have to like me. Or this neighborhood. Or the rules we changed. But if there's anything left in you that wants to be part of this place, not above it, you're welcome. Otherwise, stay here and rot in that iron box you built for yourself. She didn't stop me when I walked out. She didn't say thank you. Didn't apologize. Didn't chase me. But that night, something strange happened. I looked out my window and saw the faint glow of a porch light at Karen's house for the first time in weeks. And hanging from the tree just beyond her back patio was a hammock. Not mine. Not anyone else's. Her own. Maybe that was her way of saying sorry. Maybe it was just comfort. But either way, she got the message. Sometimes the softest resistance speaks the loudest. And as I sat in my backyard that evening, swaying in the breeze under my fully reinstated hammock, I realized something. You don't win by yelling louder. You win by lasting longer. And the best revenge is peace. You never really know how far a person will go just to feel powerful until they're the only one left clinging to it. But here's what I've learned: control built on fear never lasts. But respect? Earned honestly, shared freely, that sticks around long after titles and positions fade. It's easy to become like the people who hurt you. But real strength? Real power? Is staying kind even when it would be easier to get even. Because when you choose peace over payback, you don't just win. You change everything.